What's good, everybody? My name's Alckemy and welcome to the channel. Today you and I are going to be taking a journey through Magic Fusion, which is DSP's latest plugin, which is a vocoder. And this is especially interesting to me personally because there's not very many vocoders for iOS, much less ones that actually sound somewhat decent. So let's go ahead and first start off with something like a flexi sampler because that's the easiest way that I could demonstrate this. And for the sake of time, I'm going to try not to get too crazy, but show you a rabbit hole of getting into some crazy stuff at some point. But let's go ahead and record something into my phone. Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe to the channel because I am a taco eater. And hopefully my soothing jazz voice will carry us through the interesting aspect of this. But if I were to play this now, it would sound something a little silly, kind of like this. Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe to the channel because I am a taco eater. Great, wonderful. Now, what we want to do is pull up an ADSR because this is going to dictate us not having something super loud and buzzy, but we are going to pull up something like a wavetable. Now, very quickly as a diversion, this is important because I do want you all to know that you can actually use a wave vocoder inside of the wavetable oscillator for Drambo. It works via this way to where you have to have something before the main oscillator before you do this, but if we were to turn the amp and the mix up, you'll see that we can actually apply this to a wave.
Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe to the channel because
it's a great way to make kind of like how do you say like watermarks for beats and stuff, you know.
Super Goober Bobber Bieber.
We can also pitch this up a little bit if we wanted to play a lower note, so that way the speed doesn't change.
Super Goober Bobber Bieber, Super Goober Bobber Bieber.
So yeah, super fun stuff. But the problem with this is that you can only put this on wavetables, and you can't like have like a crazy effects chains or something run through this. So let's go ahead and pull off of this now, and in comes the amazing GSDSP Fusion, which is the Magic Fusion. Type that in here. And to set it up, it was actually really easy. I was talking with the dev and I was like, hey, can you even do this with Drambo? Because I've never done it. And he was like, I don't know, let's find out together. So lo and behold, you can, but you got to set up a little bit of routing. Now what you want to do is grab this 2 right here on the end of this audio unit and set this to the vocoder. And now this is being the modulator and the wavetable is the carrier via the yellow. So everything matches up. From there, you'll see that it says the effect requires 2 audio inputs, so no worries. But from here, we can do a lot of different stuff. If you've ever seen any of the GSDSP plugins, then they almost look exactly the same. There is a multi-stage sequence envelope generator type thing on here that you have 4 different options to choose from, and you can use this to kind of morph in between. Now, luckily, this person is a wizard, and I love the fact that I can just hit random on here and generate some values, which is pretty sweet. And this will naturally create a snapshot, so we can kind of create different stuff on here with some interesting things. But what we can also do is come onto this guy, and we're going to just insert some pre-made stuff on this, kind of like so, where we double click, grab this, we can import the same one and maybe make some changes to it just for efficiency's sake. It would be cool if this had like a random wave insertion thing. I think that would be pretty awesome, but that's okay. We can just double click and create some different sequences like this. And you'll see that when we morph this, the thing will kind of change in the in-between. So if I were to go here, change the values, go here, change the values, go here, change the values with these randoms, then now you'll see that these are kind of just jumping around and doing crazy stuff, which sounds pretty cool. So let's go ahead and demo this, see what this actually sounds like. I'm going to turn the effects all the way up and see what we get. Very enticing. We need to turn the detail up a bit and mess with the format in order to get something interesting. So
Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe to the channel because
Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe to the channel because
I will say that the vocoder works best with words and an actual waveform, just because you can kind of tell that there's vocal movement within this, but it's a really cool way to spruce up your respaces. So if I were to change this unison to 2, go into edit, change the stereo, turn up the detuning a bit, maybe if I can capture it with my relatively large fingertip.
Super Goober Bobber Bieber, subscribe. Super Goober Bobber Bieber,
Yeah, let's make that a little bit more aggressive by grabbing a shaper now. We're actually going to use the wave shaper on here. So I'm actually going to close out of this, like this guy, and go here and turn on this little present box like this, and then pull up this wave effect to add some saturation to the actual waveform itself, which is kind of nice. So now, I wonder if I were to change this into a different place, if that would make a different sound. It does. So we can kind of morph between these four little points. If you want to change these values yourself, you can. So we can change the shift, the invert, skew, all that stuff. What they actually mean, I'm not entirely sure, but just know that they change the timbre of the sound. And with this, we can also do some really cool stuff by using the built-in modulators down here. Now, if I were to grab an LFO, we'll just leave it on this. We can use this little pitchfork looking thing right here and apply this to anything. I'm going to put this on the formant. And so if I were to play this now, we can take a listen to how that's going to move over time. So hold on one second. There we go. Let's get out of that. Now that's a little bit extreme, but it does drive a point home. And what's cool is that there's a billion different kinds of modulators on here. Well, there's more than enough. You got randoms, you got macros, you've got amp followers, envelope followers, which I guess amp follower is the same thing. Pitch follower, spectral brightness, spectral centroid. I haven't even heard of some of these before, but within these, there's a bunch of different other choices that you can kind of choose from, as well as the timing and then how much you want to actually affect this. You got to sample and hold on these on both the modulator and the master. So there's a ton of different options that you can do to kind of create just interesting sounds. Now, if your source or your sidechain is too quiet or too loud, then you've got some knobs over on the left that you can either make louder or more quiet. So if we were to make our input a little bit more loud and see what that does.
Subscribe to the channel because subscribe to the channel.
It just sounds like a bunch of gibberish, although that's pretty funny. So this in general is very useful in a lot of different cases. Now, I unfortunately have been breaking this whenever I use waveforms, and I don't think that's necessarily Magic Fusion's fault. That's more of Drambo's fault and I guess like optimization. But in theory, just as a matter of showing you possibilities, I can essentially take an entire preset, so something like this, and go into an instrument rack. And this is where this gets crazy in theory, and go into not an instrument rack, but an instrument rack. And I can pull up one of my own presets that I've made. I'm going to go ahead and just pull one up because I don't feel like making one from scratch. But look at this. I've got this huge thing on here with this entire chain of all this processing and stuff. Whoa. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert this as the carrier. Good, good. So now whatever is happening on this entire thing as a whole is going to affect sound that is just the regular respace. Now, I don't necessarily think that it's going to sound cool, but what is cool about this is the fact that you can use that as a carrier or modulator on your phone. So let's go ahead and just experiment with this and see if this sounds cool at all or whatsoever. And I'm not really looking for the right answer. I'm just looking for ways to explore. If I break this, that's part of the way the name goes. I will reserve the right in case if that happens. But even still, how cool is it to be able to do what I'm doing right now? Seems to work. So now if I'm changing some of this stuff, if I scroll down here, I can manipulate a bunch of different stuff on here to do really cool, I don't know, morphing to the sound. That was sick. I need to turn this down on my speaker though, because my partner's asleep. That's why I'm speaking so low. But you can see that by modulating all these things that you can probably get some pretty wild results. And before we go, I'll show you one last thing that's super cool. That's kind of like a hack within these things. So if you were to hit this dice button, we can randomize these presets to however many you want to. But if you go to map and then you hit this button, you're going to automatically map 9 different things. So detail, fixing, invert curve, blah, 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 amount, skew curve, all that. And what you can do is grab an LFO here, and we're only going to use one because we don't need a billion of these, but we can set this to sample and hold and go boom, boom, bang, shabink, kablam, wapow, thadok, kablooey, and shaboowow. I don't know. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And now I am modulating all of these parameters just by hitting that random button from this, and you'll see that all of this stuff is moving in tandem. So this is most likely going to break the sound, or most likely going to break the plugin or Drambo as a whole. But how cool is that? And it's really only limited by your, I guess, processing power through your phone or your iPad. But imagine stacking multiples of these. Imagine using, you know, filters that you're sending through this. Imagine putting even more crazy effects on here as your entire chain. You get where I'm going with this? Like, you can do some crazy stuff in theory with this that I have yet to explore. But that's part of the reason why I love the GSDSP plugins, is that there's a lot of creativity that is kind of uncharted, because not a lot of people are really using iOS stuff in this way. And if they are, they're not talking about it a whole lot. So I'm going to hit A button and see if it does anything. If it breaks, we'll call the video there. But I don't know. Let's just find out what happens. Now I'm going to actually leave this alone, and I'm going to switch over here to where I've got this crossfader that goes between a generator and a neuro-based stuff. So if you've seen my ARCANUM-based videos, this is pretty much what that is. But let's go ahead and toss this in here and see if we can make this transform into something, I don't know, much more sinister. Some really crunchy and odd textural sounds in here, and I'm really curious to see what would happen if we were to take this and send other things into it, or take a vocoder and a regular like sampler or something and send it into these neuro bases and stuff. But as you can see, like, there's just some crazy stuff that you can do with these GSP plugins, and when you combine that with the power of Drambo and the modulation system that's built at hand, you're like really making a hard case for like sound design possibilities that's relatively affordable. And I'm not actually sure how much the Magic Fusion plugin is, so I'm gonna look that up real quick, because I don't want to hype this plugin up only to be insanely expensive. But I will say that their plugins go on sale quite a bit, and I believe that they also have bundles. So give me just 1 second, I'm on my computer. But this is currently, hold on 1 second, I'm looking, sorry, gsdsp.com. This is 20 bucks, I believe. So the iOS price is actually, sorry, $24.99 as of now, and then it goes on sale. The desktop price is $50, but you can try all of these, which is really cool. And I didn't actually know this, but this is a Spectral Vocoder, which is really interesting. So with that being said, you've got a lot of stuff to play with that I think you definitely should try to experiment with, especially if you're on iOS or an iPad, or I guess if you want to try a Spectral Vocoder as a whole on your desktop, then I imagine that the interface is going to be relatively similar, if not the same. But hopefully that gives you some insight into another look, rather, at the wonderful world of mobile sound design. If you guys like the video, then do me a favor, hit the like button. I would love to see these videos do well. Leave me some comments and let me know some things that you would like to see. If you'd like me to reach out to another company, I didn't specify, but GSTSP did send me this, and I was very excited actually to give this a try. But in any case, thank you all so much. Check out alchemy.com, and I will see you in the next one.